The Breakup Broker. Chapter 1. Breaking Hearts, Making Bank. Zoe leaned back in her ergonomic chair, a satisfied smirk playing on her lips as she watched her latest client shuffle out of her glass-walled office. Another successful breakup brokered, another heart spared from messy, drawn-out agony. She swiveled to face the floor-to-ceiling windows, the Los Angeles skyline stretching out before her like a concrete jungle of hopes, dreams, and inevitable heartbreaks. "And that," she murmured, "is how it's done." The trendy co-working space buzzed with energy. Startups, freelancers, and digital nomads tapped away at laptops or huddled over artisanal coffee. Zoe's breakup brokerage was just another business in this eclectic mix, though perhaps the only one dealing in matters of the heart. She stood, smoothing her sleek pencil skirt, and made her way to the communal kitchen. Pouring a cup of fair trade coffee, she caught her reflection in the polished espresso machine. Professional, polished, perfect. The face of a woman who had it all figured out. So why did she feel so empty? "Zoe-tastic!" A booming voice shattered her introspection. "How's my favourite heartbreak hero today?" She turned to see Trevor, the overzealous co-working space manager, bounding towards her with puppy-like enthusiasm. His Silicon Valley casual clashed horribly with his attempt at LA chic hair. "Trevor," Zoe nodded, her professional mask sliding into place. "Business is booming, as always." "Fantastic. You know, I've been thinking," Trevor leaned in. "Have you considered expanding into relationship formation? We could call it Cupid's co-working corner, eh? Eh?" Zoe suppressed a sigh. "I think I'll stick to what I'm good at, Trevor. Breaking hearts, not whatever that was." "Your loss." Trevor shrugged. "But hey, don't forget the networking mixer next week. It's going to be off the hook." As Trevor bounded away, Zoe retreated to her office, cradling her coffee. She sank into her chair, gaze drifting over the framed testimonials. "Thank you for making the hardest conversation of my life easier. Your services saved my dignity and my ex's feelings. I never thought breaking up could be so professional." She'd built this business from scratch, carved a niche in LA's startup scene. She was good at what she did. Great even. So why did each successful case leave her feeling more hollow? Zoe shook off the thought. No time for existential crises. She had a business to run, hearts to unbreak, messy emotions to tidy into neat boxes. She pulled up her schedule. 3 more clients, 3 more relationships to end with surgical precision. Just another day for LA's premier breakup broker. As she prepared for her next appointment, Zoe pushed down the small voice, wondering what it would be like to be on the other side. To feel something real, messy, and gloriously unprofessional. But that was dangerous thinking. In her line of work, getting personally involved was the quickest way to go out of business. With a decisive click, Zoe opened her client file. Time to get back to what she did best, breaking hearts and making bank. Little did she know, her next client would throw her carefully constructed world into beautiful, chaotic disarray. Chapter 2. The Client Who Knew Too Little. Zoe leaned back in her ergonomic chair, savouring another successful breakup brokered. The afternoon sun painted her meticulously organised desk, golden through the glass walls of her trendy LA co-working space. A gentle knock jolted her from her reverie. "Come in," she called, slipping effortlessly into her professional persona. Her heart skipped as Alex, the same Alex she'd been casually dating for months, stood awkwardly in the doorway. She'd carefully kept him at arm's length, even using a pseudonym to maintain her prized professional-personal divide. "Hi, I'm Alex," he said nervously. "I have an appointment." Zoe's mind raced, but her face remained impassive. "Of course, Alex. Please have a seat." As he settled in, Zoe's thoughts whirled. What was he doing here? "So, I'm not really sure how this works," Alex began, fidgeting with his graphic tee, the one with the obscure coding joke that had made her laugh on their 3rd date. "But I need help. Breaking up with someone." The words hit Zoe like a splash of cold water. She blinked, her mask slipping momentarily. "I see," she said steadily. "Tell me about the situation." Alex ran a hand through his tousled hair. "Well, there's this girl I've been seeing for a few months. She's great, really. Smart, funny, beautiful. But, Zoe prompted, pen poised. "I don't think it's going anywhere, you know. And I'm terrible at these conversations. I always make things worse. He laughed self-deprecatingly. I figured if there are professionals for everything else, why not for this? Zoe nodded, her mind racing. This was her chance to end things cleanly, to broker her own breakup without the messy emotions she usually helped clients avoid. But as she opened her mouth to speak, something stopped her. Maybe it was the sunlight catching his hazel eyes, or the genuine conflict she saw there. Maybe it was the memory of their last cozy date night. Or maybe it was just the absurdity of the situation, the kind of rom-com scenario she'd always scoffed at. Whatever it was, Zoe made a split-second decision that would change everything. Of course, Alex, she said calmly. I'd be happy to help. Tell me more about this girl. As Alex described their relationship from his perspective, Zoe listened with a strange mix of personal interest and professional detachment. She took notes, asked questions, all while marveling at the bizarre turn her day had taken. By the end of the session, Zoe had agreed to take on Alex's case. She watched him leave, her mind spinning with the implications. As the door closed, Zoe slumped in her chair, the reality crashing over her. She, Zoe Carter, breakup broker extraordinaire, had just agreed to help her own boyfriend break up with her. She laughed, a slightly hysterical edge to it. This was either going to be her masterpiece or her downfall, probably both. One thing was certain, her life had just gotten a lot more complicated. Chapter 3. Double Agent of the Heart. Zoe glared at her laptop screen, the cursor blinking accusingly on a blank document titled Alex's Case. She'd never felt so conflicted about a new client file. Then again, she'd never been hired to break up with herself. This is insane, she muttered, massaging her temples. I'm actually investigating my own relationship. Closing her eyes, Zoe drifted back to her first encounter with Alex, 3 months ago in this very co-working space. Alex had been wrestling with the finicky espresso machine in the communal kitchen, his brow furrowed. Amused by his determination, Zoe had stepped in. You have to sweet-talk it, she'd said, gently nudging him aside. It responds to flattery and the occasional threat. Alex had laughed, a warm sound that fluttered something in Zoe's chest. Ah, so it's like debugging code. Coax it when you can, threaten it when you must. Exactly, Zoe had replied, handing him a perfect shot of espresso. I'm Zoe, by the way. Alex, he'd said, sipping contentedly. You're a lifesaver, Zoe. I owe you one. Little did he know, Zoe mused, returning to the present, that he'd met her alter ego that day. She'd given him her middle name, Olivia, claiming it was family tradition, a half-truth she often used to separate her personal and professional lives. Now, that white lie had snowballed into this absurd situation. Zoe began typing, clinically documenting their early interactions. Movie nights debating plot holes. Runyon Canyon hikes showcasing Alex's endearing clumsiness. Late-night coding sessions where his passion fascinated her. As she wrote, a realization dawned. These weren't just casual dates. Their connection had a depth she'd been too guarded to acknowledge. A knock interrupted her thoughts. Mia entered, wielding 2 coffees. Thought you needed a boost. You look like you're cracking cold fusion over here. Zoe accepted gratefully. Thanks, Mia. Just a tricky case. Mia raised an eyebrow. Tricky how? You usually slice through these breakups like a hot knife through butter. Zoe hesitated, then came clean. She needed advice, and Mia was her only confidant. It's Alex, she confessed. He hired me to break up with, well, me. Mia's jaw dropped. No way. Mr. Adorkable himself. I thought you two were vibing. So did I, Zoe sighed. But he wants out. Now I'm stuck pretending to investigate us while trying to figure out why. Mia collapsed into the chair opposite. Girl, this is some next-level rom-com drama. What's your plan? No clue, Zoe admitted. I took the case in panic, but now... She gestured helplessly at her laptop. I'm realizing there might be more here than I thought. Mia leaned in, serious. Zoe, you need to come clean. This situation's a ticking time bomb. I know, Zoe groaned. But if I can figure out why he wants to break up, maybe I can fix it. Crazy, right? Completely, Mia said firmly. But also kinda sweet. Just be careful, okay? Don't let your job wreck something potentially great. As Mia left, Zoe turned back to her laptop, determined to crack Alex's decision. She had another session with him that afternoon and intended to make it count. Later, As Alex settled in across from her, Zoe felt nervous butterflies. He looked particularly handsome, his hair charmingly dishevelled. "So, Alex," she began, slipping into professional mode. "Tell me more about your relationship. When did you start feeling it wasn't working?" Alex shifted uncomfortably. "That's the thing," he said, sounding confused. "I'm not sure it isn't. Olivia's great. Smart, funny, we click, but, Zoe prompted, her heart racing. "But something's missing," Alex continued, "like she's holding back. And then there's—" He trailed off, embarrassed. "There's what?" Zoe pressed, fighting for neutrality. Alex met her eyes and Zoe forgot to breathe. "There's you," he said softly. "I know it's unprofessional, but we have a connection. It's making me question everything." Zoe felt her carefully built walls crumbling. She opened her mouth to respond, but Trevor burst in, waving a flyer. "Zoe, Alex, don't forget the co-working mixer tonight. It's gonna be epic." As Trevor rambled about icebreakers and networking games, Zoe and Alex shared a look of mingled amusement and frustration. The moment passed, but Zoe knew one thing. This case was far from closed. Watching Alex leave, Zoe realized she was in deep, falling for him while trying to break up with him and maintain her secret identity. Something had to give, and soon. The question was, would her heart or her career be the casualty? Chapter 4. The Blurring Lines of Love and Business. Zoe tapped her pen against the sleek glass desk, eyes fixed on her office door. Any minute now, Alex would walk in for the most surreal investigation session of her career. She took a deep breath, reminding herself she was a professional. This was just another case. Except it wasn't. The door swung open, and there he was. Alex, with his endearingly tousled hair and a graphic tee featuring a pixelated heart. Zoe's own heart did a little flip. "Hey, Zoe," Alex said, his voice a mix of warmth and nervousness. "Ready to dive deeper into my relationship woes?" Zoe nodded, slipping into her professional persona. "Absolutely. Let's start by exploring your feelings about your girlfriend. What drew you to her initially?" Alex settled into the chair across from her, his hazel eyes thoughtful. "Well, she's incredibly smart and funny. We met at this coffee shop in Venice Beach. I accidentally spilled my cold brew all over her table." Zoe bit back a smile, remembering that day vividly. She'd been so annoyed at first, but Alex's genuine remorse and awkward attempts to help had quickly won her over. "And how did that lead to a relationship?" she prompted, curious to hear his perspective. She made this joke about how I'd ruined her chances of becoming the next J.K. Rowling, and I countered that I'd just given her a great meet-cute for her novel. Alex chuckled, a fond look in his eyes. "We ended up talking for hours. It was like finding a bug in your code and realizing it's actually a feature, you know?" Zoe blinked, momentarily thrown by the software analogy. "Could you elaborate on that?" "Oh, sorry." Alex rubbed the back of his neck. "I mean, what started as an accident turned into something unexpectedly great." As Alex continued to share his feelings, Zoe found herself swept up in the memories. She'd forgotten how much thought he'd put into their early dates, how attentive he'd been to her likes and dislikes. "It sounds like you care for her deeply," Zoe said, her professional voice wavering slightly. "What's changed?" Alex leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "That's the thing. I don't think anything has changed. I think I'm just scared." "Scared of what?" Zoe asked, her heart racing. "Of how much I care about her," Alex admitted, his eyes meeting Zoe's. "It's like I've created this amazing app, but I'm terrified to launch it because what if it crashes and burns?" The room suddenly felt too small, too warm. Zoe stood up, needing distance. "Let's take a break. I'll grab us some coffee." She hurried out, nearly colliding with Trevor in the hallway. "Whoa there, Z-Lightning," Trevor exclaimed, steadying her. "Everything okay in Breakup Paradise?" Zoe forced a smile. "Just peachy, Trevor. A little caffeine emergency." "Say no more." Trevor's eyes lit up. "I just installed a new cold brew tap in the common area. It's got flavour infusions and everything. I call it the grind disruptor." "Thanks, Trevor," Zoe said, already moving past him. "Maybe later." She made her way to the kitchenette, gripping the counter as she tried to steady her breathing. This was bad. Very bad. Not only was Alex not looking to break up, but he was also talking about deeper feelings. Feelings that, if she was honest with herself, she shared. Zoe mechanically went through the motions of making coffee, her mind racing. She'd started this charade to avoid getting hurt, but now she was in deeper than ever, and worse, she was hurting Alex in the process. With 2 steaming mugs in hand, she returned to her office. Alex was standing by the window, looking out at the LA skyline. "Here," she said, holding out a mug. As Alex turned and reached for it, their fingers brushed. A jolt of electricity seemed to pass between them, and for a moment, they both froze. "Thanks," Alex murmured, his eyes searching hers. Zoe took a step back, trying to regain her professional composure. "So, shall we continue?" Alex nodded, but instead of returning to his chair, he stayed by the window. "You know, it's funny, talking to you about all this. It reminds me of her." Zoe nearly choked on her coffee. "Oh? Yeah, you have the same way of really listening, you know, and your smile." Alex trailed off, shaking his head. "Sorry, that's probably inappropriate." "No, it's fine," Zoe managed, her heart pounding. "It's natural to see similarities in others when you're thinking about someone you care about." Alex nodded, taking a sip of his coffee. "I think I've made a mistake, Zoe. I don't want to break up with her. I want to tell her how I really feel." The words hung in the air between them, heavy with implications. Zoe felt a mix of elation and panic. This was everything she wanted to hear, but not like this. Not under false pretenses. "I think that's a wonderful idea, Alex," she said softly, meaning every word. As Alex smiled at her, relief and excitement lighting up his face, Zoe knew she was in trouble. The lines between her professional life and her personal feelings had never been so blurred. And as she looked into Alex's warm, earnest eyes, she realized she no longer knew which side of the line she was standing on. Chapter 5. A Comedy of Errors. Zoe's heels clicked against the polished concrete floor of the co-working space as she rushed to her next appointment. Her phone buzzed incessantly. A text from Alex, her boyfriend, followed by an email from Alex, her client. The duality of her situation was giving her a migraine. "Hey, breakup queen!" Trevor's voice boomed across the open space, turning heads. "Don't forget about the community yoga session at lunch." Zoe forced a smile. "Thanks, Trevor. I'll keep that in mind." "Awesome sauce," Trevor beamed, flashing 2 enthusiastic thumbs up before bounding off to his next victim of mandatory fun. Rounding the corner, Zoe nearly collided with Alex. Her Alex. Client Alex. The Alex she was supposed to be breaking up with herself for. Complicated didn't begin to cover it. "Whoa, sorry!" Alex steadied her, his hands lingering a moment too long. "I was just coming to see you, actually. About our, project." "Right, yes, the project." Zoe nodded, acutely aware of curious glances from nearby desks. "Let's discuss this in my office." Once inside, Zoe took a deep breath. "So, what can I do for you, Alex?" "Well," he hesitated, ruffling his already tousled hair. "I've been thinking about this whole breakup thing and I'm not sure." A knock interrupted him. Mia poked her head in, eyes widening at Alex's presence. "Oh, sorry, didn't realize you were in a meeting, Zoologist," Zoe blurted out, earning confused looks. "I mean, yes, I'm with my zoologist client, about breaking up with his zookeeper girlfriend." Mia raised an eyebrow but played along. "Right. Well, don't forget our lunch plans. You know, to discuss that thing about your boyfriend." Alex's head snapped up. "Boyfriend?" "Ex-boyfriend," Zoe corrected hastily. "Mia's helping me process a recent breakup. Ironic, right? Breakup broker gets broken up with." Alex's brow furrowed. "That's unfortunate. I'm sorry to hear that." As Mia left, Zoe could have sworn she saw a smirk on her friend's face. This day was shaping up to be a marathon. Later, in the communal kitchen, Zoe found herself sandwiched between Mia and Alex at the lunch table, with Trevor waxing poetic about wheatgrass shots. "So, Zoe," Mia began, eyes glinting mischievously, "tell us more about this ex of yours. Any similarities to our present company?" Zoe choked on her salad. "Not exactly lunch conversation material, Mia." "Oh, come on," Trevor chimed in. "We're all friends here. Spill, Zoe bot." Alex leaned in, genuinely curious. "Yeah, what kind of guy catches a professional heartbreaker's eye?" Zoe felt heat creeping up her neck. "He's tall." "Like me?" Alex grinned. "And he works in tech," Zoe added, immediately regretting it. Alex's eyes widened. "Also like me. What are the odds? Slim to none, Mia muttered into her coffee. Trevor, oblivious to the tension, clapped his hands. This is great. Zoe, maybe you and Alex should… Look at the time. Zoe stood abruptly. Client meeting, about a breakup, a different one. Not mine. Or yours, Alex. Someone else's. As she fled the kitchen, Zoe felt Alex's gaze boring into her back. Her charade was unravelling at an alarming rate. Back in her office, Zoe slumped into her chair. Her phone pinged with a message from Alex. Boyfriend Alex. Hey babe, can't wait for our date tonight. Got something important to discuss. Zoe stared at the screen, dread washing over her. Her house of cards was teetering, ready to collapse. A knock made her jump. It was Alex, client Alex, looking more confused and determined than ever. Zoe, he said, his voice serious. I think we need to talk. As he closed the door, Zoe realised her carefully constructed double life was about to implode. And ironically, she, the queen of smooth breakups, had no idea how to handle it. Chapter 6. The Truth Unravels. Zoe drummed her fingers on her sleek glass desk, eyes darting between her computer screen and the office door. Any minute now, Alex would walk in for their next investigation session, and she wasn't sure how much longer she could keep up this charade. As if on cue, a soft knock preceded Alex poking his head in. Hey Zoe, ready for me? She plastered on her professional smile. Always, Alex. Come on in. As he settled into the chair across from her, Zoe noticed the furrow in his brow and slight hesitation in his movements. Something was off. So, she began, her voice slipping into its practiced soothing tone. How are you feeling about your relationship today? Alex ran a hand through his already tousled hair, a gesture Zoe found annoyingly endearing. That's the thing, Zoe, I'm confused. Oh. She leaned forward, heart rate picking up. How so? Well, he started, then paused, searching for words. The more time I spend with you, talking about my girlfriend, the more I realise how similar you two are. Zoe felt her carefully constructed facade begin to crack. Similar? How do you mean? It's just little things, Alex continued, his hazel eyes searching her face. The way you laugh, your mannerisms, even some phrases you use. It's uncanny. Zoe's mind raced, scrambling for a plausible explanation. Well, you know what they say about LA, she quipped, injecting levity into her voice. We're all just copies of copies. Alex didn't laugh. Instead, he leaned forward, his gaze intensifying. Zoe, I can't shake this feeling that there's something you're not telling me. Before she could respond, a booming voice echoed through the office. Attention, co-working comrades. Zoe had never been so grateful for Trevor's inappropriate volume levels. She and Alex turned to see the eccentric manager standing in the doorway, beaming like he'd just invented sliced bread. Clear your calendars, folks. This Friday we're having our first ever networking and nosh event right here in our illustrious space. Alex raised an eyebrow. Networking and nosh? That's right, man, Trevor exclaimed, oblivious to the tension he'd interrupted. It's going to be epic. We'll have food, drinks, and icebreaker games that'll make LinkedIn jealous. As Trevor rambled on about his grand plans, Zoe's mind whirred. This event could be her chance to come clean, to finally end this ridiculous charade. But the thought of facing Alex, of potentially losing him, made her stomach churn. So, what do you say, Breakup Broker? Trevor's voice cut through her thoughts. You in? Zoe nodded weakly. Wouldn't miss it, Trevor. Excellent. Trevor clapped his hands together. I'll leave you two to your… whatever it is you do. Remember, snitches get stitches, but networkers get… work-ers. He finger-gunned his way out of the office, leaving an awkward silence in his wake. Alex turned back to Zoe, his expression a mix of amusement and suspicion. Well, that was… classic Trevor, Zoe finished, forcing a laugh. Yeah, Alex agreed, then paused. You know, maybe I should bring my girlfriend to this event. I'd love for you two to meet. Zoe felt the blood drain from her face. This was it. The moment her carefully constructed house of cards came tumbling down. Alex, She started, then stopped. How could she possibly explain this? He leaned forward, concern etching his features. Zoe, are you okay? She took a deep breath, steeling herself. Alex, there's something I need to tell you. At the event. I promise everything will make sense then. Confusion flickered across his face, but he nodded slowly. Okay, I trust you, Zoe. As Alex left her office, Zoe slumped in her chair, the weight of her deception pressing down on her. She'd made her decision. Come Friday, at Trevor's ridiculous networking and nosh event, she would finally reveal the truth. She only hoped that when the dust settled, there would be something left to salvage. Chapter 7. Love in the Time of Co-working. The co-working space buzzed with excitement as Trevor's networking nightcap event kicked off. Fairy lights twinkled overhead, casting a soft glow on the gathered entrepreneurs and freelancers. Zoe stood by the makeshift bar, nervously fidgeting with her sparkling water, eyes darting around the room. "Zoe-tastic!" Trevor boomed, approaching in a blazer covered in LED lights that blinked in sync with his words. "Isn't this shindig absolutely disrupting the traditional networking paradigm?" Zoe managed a weak smile. "It's certainly something, Trevor. I know, right? I call it ambient social lubrication through strategic mood lighting and fermented grape juice. Patent pending." He beamed, oblivious to Zoe's distraction. As Trevor launched into his revolutionary event planning algorithm, Zoe spotted Alex entering. Her heart flipped, equal parts excitement and dread. "Excuse me," Zoe interrupted, barely registering Trevor's protest as she made her way towards Alex. Mia intercepted her halfway. "Are you sure about this, Zoe? It's not too late to back out." Zoe took a deep breath. "I have to do this. I can't keep lying to him." Mia squeezed her arm. "Okay, but if you need an emergency extraction, just say kale smoothie, and I'll create a diversion." With a grateful nod, Zoe approached Alex, who stood by a high table, looking adorably uncomfortable in a blazer over his usual graphic tee. "Hey, Alex," Zoe said, barely audible over the conversation hum and soft jazz. Alex's face lit up. "Zoe, I'm glad you're here. I've been wanting to talk to you about something." "Me too, actually," Zoe began, but Trevor's voice cut her off. "Attention, innovators and disruptors. Time for our icebreaker. Find a partner who's not in your industry. You have 30 seconds to pitch your most outrageous business idea. Go!" The room erupted in voices. Alex leaned in close. "Want to be partners?" Before Zoe could respond, she was jostled from behind, stumbling forward, her face inches from Alex's. For a moment, the noise faded, and all she could focus on was his warm breath and familiar cologne. "Sorry," Trevor squeezed past. "Just spreading the entrepreneurial spirit." Zoe stepped back, cheeks flushed. "Alex, there's something I need to tell you." "Me first," Alex insisted. "I've been thinking about our sessions and I've realized something. The girl I wanted to break up with, she's me," Zoe finished. "The girl is me." Alex's eyes widened in shock as understanding dawned. "But how? Why?" he sputtered. "It's a long story," Zoe said, voice trembling. "One that involves a fake name, a lot of compartmentalization, and an embarrassing amount of self-deception." Alex ran a hand through his hair, expression a mix of confusion and hurt. "So all this time, when I was talking about my girlfriend, I was actually talking about you?" Zoe nodded, tears pricking her eyes. "I'm so sorry, Alex. I never meant for things to get so complicated." "Complicated?" Alex let out a strangled laugh. "That's like saying the internet is kinda useful." Trevor materialized beside them, his LED blazer now pulsing an alarming red. "Whoa, I'm sensing some serious disruption in the force here," Trevor said, looking between them. "Maybe you two need to pivot to a more positive interaction." "Trevor," Zoe said through gritted teeth, "now is really not the time." "Nonsense," Trevor exclaimed. "I have just the thing. New activity, everyone. Find the person you have the most complicated relationship with and express your feelings through kale smoothie!" Zoe shouted desperately. On cue, Mia appeared, accidentally knocking over a tray of hors d'oeuvres. As Trevor rushed to help, Mia shot Zoe a thumbs up. Left alone again, Zoe turned back to Alex, heart pounding. "I know I messed up, Alex. I got caught up in trying to keep my professional and personal lives separate, and somewhere along the way, I lost sight of what really matters." Alex was quiet for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Then, to Zoe's surprise, he began to laugh. "You know," he said, shaking his head, "I came here tonight planning to tell you that I couldn't go through with the breakup, that I'd realized I was falling for my breakup broker." Zoe's breath caught. "Really?" "Really," Alex confirmed. I guess in a weird way, your deception helped me figure out how I really feel. And how do you feel? Zoe asked, hardly daring to hope. Alex reached out and took her hand. Like maybe we should try this whole dating thing again, for real this time. No fake names, no professional facades, just us. Zoe felt a smile spreading across her face. I'd like that. As they leaned in towards each other, the room erupted in cheers. They turned to see the entire co-working space watching them, led by an enthusiastic Trevor. Now that's what I call a successful merger, Trevor shouted, his blazer now flashing heart shapes. Zoe and Alex looked at each other and burst out laughing. As far as revelations went, it wasn't perfect. But in the heart of LA, in a co-working space full of dreamers and innovators, it felt like the start of something real. And for Zoe, the professional breakup broker who had accidentally brokered her own love story, it felt like the perfect new beginning. Chapter 8. Rebooting the Relationship. The co-working space hummed with post-event energy, but Zoe and Alex were in their own world, tucked away in a quiet corner. The truth hung between them, impossible to ignore. So, Alex broke the silence. You're my girlfriend. And your breakup broker, Zoe added, wincing. Ex-breakup broker, I suppose. Alex ruffled his hair, a gesture Zoe found oddly endearing. I'm trying to process this. It's like debugging a program only to discover you're in the wrong code base. Zoe chuckled despite herself. Leave it to you to make a software analogy now. It's how I cope, Alex defended, his smile fading. But really, Zoe, why keep it secret? Zoe's professional facade crumbled. At first, I was stunned. Then, I wanted to understand why you wanted to end things. The longer it went on, the harder it became to come clean. Alex nodded slowly. Fair enough. I hired a breakup broker instead of talking to you. I'm hardly a communication expert. Their eyes met, and suddenly they both burst into laughter. We're a mess, aren't we? Zoe giggled. A hot mess, Alex agreed, wiping his eyes. But maybe that's okay. As their laughter subsided, seriousness settled in. Zoe leaned forward, voice low and earnest. Alex, I'm sorry. What I did was unethical, personally and professionally. I've been so focused on ending relationships, I never learned to nurture my own. Alex reached for her hand. I'm sorry too. I was so afraid of hurting you that I almost lost you entirely. Real relationships terrify me, Zoe. And what we have, it's real. It scares me. Zoe squeezed his hand, her heart fluttering. It scares me too, but maybe that means it's worth fighting for. Maybe, Alex smiled. So what now? Do we start over? Zoe shook her head. Not start over. We reboot. We use what we've learned and move forward, together. Honestly this time. I like that, Alex said. But what about your job? Zoe bit her lip. You're right. It's time for a change. Maybe instead of ending relationships, I should help people build stronger ones. Relationship debugging. Alex grinned. Zoe laughed, feeling lighter. Something like that. I don't have it all figured out, but I want to try. With you, Alex, if you'll have me. Alex pulled Zoe to her feet and into his arms. I wouldn't have it any other way. As they embraced, Zoe saw Mia giving her a thumbs up across the room. Nearby, Trevor was scribbling on a whiteboard, likely planning a reinvention celebration. Zoe smiled into Alex's shoulder. Their future wouldn't be easy, but she was excited. They had work to do, but they'd do it together. Alex pulled back, grinning mischievously. So, do I get a refund on your services? Zoe rolled her eyes, smiling. Don't push it, but I might offer a lifetime of free relationship advice. Deal, Alex said, sealing it with a kiss. In the heart of the co-working space where it all began, Zoe and Alex stepped into their rebooted relationship, ready to face whatever bugs and glitches came their way. Chapter 9. Debugging the Heart. Zoe stared at her laptop screen, the cursor blinking mockingly as she attempted to draft her resignation letter. The words "I quit" seemed simultaneously liberating and terrifying. Having a staring contest with your computer? Alex's voice startled her. He placed a steaming mug of coffee on her desk, the aroma of freshly ground beans wafting through the air. Something like that, Zoe sighed, leaning back. I'm trying to figure out how to tell my clients I'm shutting down the breakup brokerage. Alex perched on the edge of her desk, his eyes soft. You know, in the tech world we call this pivoting. It's not the end, it's just a new direction. Zoe smiled. Is there an app for that? Career pivot for dummies or something? If there isn't, maybe that's your next business venture, Alex quipped, eyes twinkling. Their laughter was interrupted by Trevor's over-enthusiastic voice. Zoe-licious, Alex a million, what's crack-a-lackin'? He bounded over, his tie featuring an eye-searing pattern of smiling emojis. Zoe and Alex exchanged amused glances. Just discussing some potential changes, Trevor, Zoe replied diplomatically. Trevor's eyes lit up. Changes? Oh, I love changes. They're like the espresso shots in the latte of life. After Trevor left, Alex turned serious. Whatever you decide, Zoe, I'm here for you. Zoe squeezed his hand, warmth flooding through her. Thank you, Alex. I don't know where this road leads, but I'm glad you're on it with me. Later, Zoe found herself in the kitchen, staring blankly into the refrigerator. If you're looking for career advice in there, I hate to break it to you, but the fridge is fresh out, Mia quipped. Zoe chuckled. And here I thought the answers to life's great questions were hidden behind the week-old sushi. Mia hopped onto the counter. Spill it, sister. What's eating you? I'm just scared, Mia, Zoe admitted. I've built my whole identity around being the breakup broker. Who am I without that? Mia raised an eyebrow. You're Zoe, the same smartass who's been my best friend since college. Zoe felt a lump in her throat. When did you get so wise? Probably around the same time you got so dense, Mia replied with a grin, pulling Zoe into a hug. As the day wound down, Zoe found herself on the rooftop terrace with Alex watching the sunset. So, he said, any epiphanies? Zoe took a sip of wine. Maybe. I'm thinking, what if instead of breaking up relationships I help build them, like a communication consultant for couples? Alex's face broke into a wide smile. That actually sounds amazing, Zoe. Yeah, she asked, excitement igniting in her chest. Yeah, he nodded. And hey, if you need a beta tester for your services, I know a guy who's pretty invested in making a relationship work. Zoe's heart swelled as she looked at Alex, his face bathed in golden light. I think I might take you up on that offer. As they clinked glasses, Zoe realized she was excited about the future, both professionally and personally. She didn't have all the answers, but with Alex by her side and friends like Mia supporting her, she felt ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. The sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in vibrant hues. Zoe leaned into Alex, feeling a sense of peace wash over her. She might be debugging her career, but her heart, that was functioning just fine. As if on cue, Trevor's voice floated up from below. Hey, lovebirds, don't forget to sign up for tomorrow's trust fall exercise. It's mandatory fun. Zoe and Alex burst into laughter, their joy echoing across the LA rooftops. Whatever the future held, they'd face it together, one awkward team-building exercise at a time.